I'm Myra.
And I'm Tressa. We are fancy marketing people with Union, a Wyoming-based telecommunication company. Yes, Wyoming really does exist. We proudly serve the Rocky Mountain region.
On this podcast, we will feature businesses, organizations, nonprofits, and influential people from Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming.
Our mission is to highlight those who inspire their communities daily.
We believe this makes us truly authentic because a journey of 1,000 miles always begins with a single step.
Hi, Myra.
Hello, Tressa. Welcome back.
Here we are.
Here we
Podcasting.
I know. I was listening to our pilot the other day and about how cold it was and how there was just snow everywhere. And now it's like in the 90s. And I kind of wish we had some snow.
Don't say that, Myra. Do not.
I never thought I would be one of those people. But it's hot. It's way hot. I like it too, but I also like air conditioning. And we live in a state where homes don't come with air conditioning. And they should.
Embrace the vitamin D, Myra. Embrace it.
Yeah, I should.
Yeah, I went to an outdoor concert this last week. It was beautiful. 80-some degrees, and then the evening was just crystal clear.
Well, you're lucky. Yeah, I went to a concert, too, in the same venue the next day, and it was like 96. And I'm standing in the pit of this concert, and it was a very interesting mix of people, or bands, I guess. And you had like a screamo emo, and then you had like Fall Out Boy after. And I'm just looking around at all these other 30-some-year-old people, and I'm like, what are we doing? You know, everybody had in like earplugs, and like we're all like put together, and like people are trying to mosh, and I'm like, what is happening? You know, how old am I right now? So
you're young.
I know, but I looked around, and I'm like, we're all the same people, and we're all the same people doing the same things that we were doing 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, if I would have known about ear protection in the 80s, I might be able to hear better now, because I went to many, many rock concerts without any hearing protection.
Yeah, well, I wear an Apple Watch. And so the whole time I'm at the concert, I just, like, my decimal radar is, like, flying off. Oh. And I'm thinking, should I do something about this, or do I just keep on keeping?
Keep on keeping on.
It's like you've reached over 100 decibels. And I'm like, I get the alert, but at the same time, Apple, you're just making me feel really bad about myself.
What is a safe decibel to be in?
I don't even know.
Me either.
None. Silence.
Meditation.
Meditation, yeah. Calm. Water sounds. White noise. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, I'm still recovering, so I love concerts, but gosh, that one got me. It's hot, standing, jumping. It's a lot. It was a lot.
That's why I get the lawn seats where I can relax.
Yeah.
Not getting pushed around.
I could have used a chair.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
Exactly.
A recliner.
A fan.
Something like some palms. Anything would have been nice. Yeah.
It's that time of year. We've got a lot of concerts coming up, too, with CFD.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I know. I was thinking of all the shows that I'm going to. And some include seats and some don't. So.
Get your tennis shoes out.
I know. I'm prepping. I know. I wore sneakers. I actually wore Converse, and I think that it ruined
maybe need those
me more than anything.
What are those insoles you can get?
The Dr. Scholl's.
Dr. Scholl's, yeah.
Millennial Emo Screamo Concert Starter Pack. Dr. Scholl's. Earplugs. And water.
A gallon of water.
Really what you actually need.
See?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's funny. Did you enjoy your concert?
I did. I did enjoy it. Yeah, we had 2 country artists. I can't remember the opener, Brantley Gilbert, and then Nickelback. It's really interesting how some of these rock bands are touring with country music.
Yeah.
Artists.
It wasn't a bad mix?
I loved it. I like both of those bands, so it was good for me. Yeah.
That's cool.
It wasn't a bad mix. Yeah. Nice and mellow in the beginning, and then, rocking out by the end. So it's perfect.
Yeah. Well,
we're ready to jump in.
Yeah, I'm excited for this podcast today, actually.
Me too.
I mean, I'm excited for the other ones, too. Everyone else is also important. But I'm really pumped because today we have Beth Trejo, who is the CEO of Chatterkick. And Chatterkick is a marketing agency that we've been partnering with for, I think, almost 3 years now. And it's been a longstanding partnership. We've grown with this partnership. We've changed a lot and evolved, and I really owe a lot of what's happened with our company, especially with our marketing, to Chatterkick and to our pod. So this is really cool to be here and talking to you, Beth.
Yeah, welcome to the show,
I'm
Beth.
so excited. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to jump into this conversation, and we equally appreciate the partnership and always love to work with great brands, and Union is one of them.
Thank you. Do you want to start out just telling us a little bit about your company, why you started Chatterkick, and what do you love most about working in the social media space?
Yeah, well, I'm going to start with the end question because I think that really gives a little background of myself. So one of the things I love about social media is that it's always changing. There's always something new. And I'm just a naturally curious person. And I always am looking, you go in the grocery store and you put a new sticker on something or you introduce a new flavor. Like I am that person at my core. And so when social media was just kind of coming on the scene, I was watching businesses and brands really kind of fumble with how to approach these very unique platforms. Social media isn't just one thing and marketing isn't just one thing. It's so many things. And so our goal is to really build that human connection in the digital space. And that covers marketing, human resources, it covers sales enablement at times. So it really is more than just, a Facebook post or whatever. Sometimes I think gets simplified down to. So I started the business about 11 years ago. Didn't know I would ever be an entrepreneur. It was one of those things. I was actually working at a chamber of commerce, a regional chamber of commerce, and was watching business deals get formed over handshakes and coffees and lunches, and saw the parallels that these digital tools could bring into our new and evolving business workplace. And so that was the problem I set out to solve.
That's awesome. I love how it started just very organically for you.
Yeah.
That's the best.
It was kind of random. I always said I never thought I would be a business owner and, be an entrepreneur. And then I tell that to some of my family and friends. They're like, oh, this totally makes sense. So I definitely am stubborn enough to kind of keep at it, I guess.
Yeah. So speaking of the way social media is evolving just recently, I guess July 5th, I think, Threads launched through Meta. And, I saw it come out and I saw people signing up, and I was kind of skeptical for a little bit because, there was another platform called Lemonade, and it was jiving for a minute, and I think it's kind of not really taking off. Or it doesn't seem to me, as fast as Threads is growing, because I think 70 million people joined within that first little bit. So with all these social platforms coming out and things are changing and the dialogue is changing and the way people are using them is just so different than what they all started out to be originally. How do you keep up with that? How do you keep up with those trends, the new platforms, and navigating best practices with the way algorithms work or the way the algorithms change?
Yeah, it definitely is constant. And, I am always consuming information. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm trying to get different people's perspectives too, because I think that's so important, is to not just tunnel yourself into one mindset or way that these things work. Threads is really interesting because of the volume. Meta and Instagram, Facebook, they have so many people on that platform that they were really able to launch a product that people, at least were curious about. There's a ton of signups, just to give you some perspective. So there's other platforms that are kind of, let's call them Twitter rivals out there. And Blue Sky, I think they have 100 million users. And as you mentioned, Threads joined. I was literally on vacation last week and a whole new platform came out. There's 70 million users. And now I have to figure out like how to organize this and help clients with it. And this stuff just happens so fast. But I think what is really interesting is we still are craving connection, because like if you look at Threads, what it's really doing is it's bringing everybody back into a conversation. And TikTok does this a lot in the comments, and you all see this a lot. There's a lot of dialogue that happens in the comments of TikTok. And I think a lot of people are just craving that, like, I want somebody to respond to me mentality, whether it's a brand, whether it's an individual, an influencer. And so if you really look at Threads, I was laughing with the team today because I was like, this is what our Facebook posts look like 8-9 years ago. Like I should just go pull back some of those questions and thought-provoking comments out, because I could literally probably use those in the exact same format.
I agree. Yeah, I was on it trying to post something, and I'm like, this is what I've told myself not to do, to move away from those old Facebook posts. And it kind of reminded me of Tumblr a little bit. Like I felt like I was
very much
bringing Tumblr back and having weird conversations. It's kind of interesting that we're going back, not backwards, but kind of, back to where it all started, away from kind of this thing that's been created from us. We're kind of peeling the layers back.
Yeah, what's really interesting about Threads is that it's built on a decentralized platform. So this is kind of that whole Web3 concept. And I actually think this is really good for social media, because it would make theoretically those followers that you have on something like Threads portable, so that in every new platform, you wouldn't have to build an entirely new audience. That if at one point we have all these decentralized social media networks, we actually would have deeper connections with our customers and audience, because we could kind of cross the platform so much easier than what we have to do now, which is like hop around, right? You're like 1 foot in Facebook. Now I got to go 2 foot. It becomes a lot for anybody in marketing to manage. And it's a lot for audiences to be like, wait, I saw something I wanted to find more information about or buy. Like, where was that at? Did I save it? Did I send the link? It kind of gets confusing as a user as well.
Yeah, I have not looked at Threads. I dabble a little bit in social media, Facebook, Instagram, that's about it. So that's really interesting to hear you guys talk about that. But Beth, you had said something in there about connection. And I had a question around that connection. You said people obviously want to be connected, but do you think that social media in a sense has damaged human connection because it's more in a digital way versus a personal way?
I think it really just depends on the user. And I think it depends if you're looking at this at the micro or the macro levels, because there's no doubt that social media has gotten ugly. I mean, I've seen the transition of it from where it started to be like, you're connected to your college friends. I was that generation that we got Facebook in college. And so it felt very intimate. It felt very connected. You could have conversations there. And now it feels like I have so many connections on Facebook that I don't even remember who I've connected with. And so I'm now speaking in front of a large audience that I don't really feel that, friendly with maybe at times. And so it just feels like a very different world. But I think that at our core, I am a believer that people are good and, that people actually don't want to troll everybody all the time. But some of these tools just make it easier for people to do that. And so I guess I would like to hope that it doesn't continue the ugly that comes out of social media, and that we find a way to become, better with these tools, because they're just social tools, right? It's not like they're a solution or even the biggest problem. It's also how we choose to use them. So I think that there's opportunities there to improve, but ultimately, you can be connected to people that you're not geographically next to, and you can have deeper conversations and argue in a good space that isn't divisive. And I think that's what these newer platforms are trying to do, actually, is they're trying to make it more intimate with those conversations.
So I want to talk some about the mental health with social media. So we talked about the connection, how it's not totally damaging things, but it has evolved. And some of the mental health, I think, comes from like the influencer space, because you talked a little bit about you're following people, or people are following you, or they're connecting with you on these different platforms, and you don't even remember how that happened. I feel like for me personally, I follow a ton of influencers. I don't even know them personally, but they affect my buying power. They affect my thinking sometimes. Sometimes I'm questioning what I'm doing, and I'm a pretty sound person. So how have you seen the space change too with mental health? Like, I'm not saying influencers are a bad thing, but I know there's even a de-influencer movement happening, started by some influencers. So it's just a really interesting place now with mental health and around what's happening and how people are using and engaging in the platform.
Yeah, so I think there's like two big distinctions when you look at this question is young people and kids and those that are like the most vulnerable. And then, adults that, like you were mentioning, you feel like you got a good grasp on who you are and you can kind of maybe self-police a little bit more than other groups of individuals. So, and I think that really is what these platforms need to be better at, is dividing those two camps out, because for myself personally, I mean, I'm on social all the time, and I'm the same way. Like, I follow certain influencers, and sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, just stop posting this like right now, right? And so for me, I feel like those are the times that I just need to put some checks and balances in place of my own personal, like, okay, this is too much screen time. Like, make sure I put that sort of screen time notification that slaps me in the face that says, this is how much you have, or this is the apps that you're using. Like, just some, kind of self-accountability to how much I'm using these tools. And I think for a lot of adults, that can be a good tool, and just taking breaks, like making sure you're giving yourself a week off of your phone or social specifically. Anything that is that kind of mindless scrolling concept is it's good for us. It's good for all of us. But then I think when you look at the other camp of those like young people, children, those who are most vulnerable, that's really where I think, asking those individuals to police themselves on a very addictive technology is probably unfair. And a little bit more hand-holding needs to be done based on, again, if you're younger, if you're in a vulnerable population. And I think on the other side of that argument, it's also interesting because there are a lot of people that say, well, if you are from a marginalized community and maybe you don't see people like you where you live, or you feel very isolated where you're at, like you can actually connect to digital communities and feel better about yourself and form people that are like-minded, and real community building online, I think is super healthy. And you see that in a good spot for so many people. But I think that the nuances to that are probably very large, right? How do you make those spaces feel good and feel supportive and, help encourage growth for people and not bring them down?
Yeah. Do you have you talked about adults kind of monitoring themselves and how much screen time they have, and maybe even doing like a week of, no social media or limiting their phone use. Do you have any suggestions on like how much time is healthy versus, within a day, how much screen time for an adult seems to be a healthy balance?
Well, for young people, they say 2 hours is probably like what our brains, can really get benefit out of. So it's not a hard and fast rule. Like, obviously, if you're using your phone for other things like photos, like there's parts of that don't always equate to, just social media. But a couple of tips that I think are really helpful. One, sleeping next to your phone, is that critical for you? Like, is there a way you could get a different alarm clock, or do you need it next to your bed? Because I think the mindless scrolling that comes the hour or two before most people go to bed, or even in the morning, is not always productive. And that is where a lot of the research shows it's just, you're not in a curiosity mode at that time, and you're just kind of like numbing your brain. So not sleeping next to your phone. I don't sleep next to my phone. It drives me nuts if there's any dings or whatever the case may be. So I think that's one easy thing. The other is making sure that you're curating your feed in some regards. So all of the social media platforms have a similar type algorithm that says the more that you interact, the more that it's going to show you that type of content. Like they're not all exactly the same, but in general, that's how these platforms work. And so if you see a lot of things that you're feeling like, oh, this person always makes me feel like, I need to have a prettier home, or like I need to, have a bigger house or car. Like it's really important to unfollow those individuals so that you're not seeing that in your feed. And I would also encourage you to look at like, do all the people in your feed look the same? Are they from different backgrounds? Kind of diversify that, both like actually diversify, and also making sure that you're able to get different perspectives, because that also can help with that constant mental health of like seeing the same message from only the same type of people. And that can be exhausting at times. So diversifying the feed, unfollowing people. If you have something bad to say, just remove that person, unfollow them, hide the post, whatever platform you're in. On TikTok, just scroll really fast. That's a pretty good indicator for the platform to like get it out. And I think that can help train your feed so that it makes it a better experience for you.
Yeah, that's great. I always make sure my phone is charging in my kitchen at night. I don't like to have it in my bedroom with me. Even tempted, if you have to get up and get a drink of water, or use the bathroom in the night, not to grab your phone. I've heard, that dopamine hit can then, people can struggle to actually go back into sleep after they're touching their device. So I think that's great. And then as far as for parents, I mean, there's so many different social media platforms out there, right? Like the one you and Myra are talking about, Threads. I hadn't even heard of that until Casey had emailed us about that. So, so how can parents monitor what their children can access, and how do they limit their usage, or what kind of content they're receiving?
Yeah. So this one is very relevant in my world. I have a 11-year-old and a 12-year-old. My 12-year-old has a phone, but it's pretty restricted. He doesn't get any technical social media apps. And my 11-year-old has an iPad that's also restricted. So these conversations are very, very relevant, because I have them all day, every day, of just education on the platforms. And I also think, when you have kids, it just makes you put a mirror up to yourself and your own behavior at the same time, of being like you were just saying, picking up your phone and, someone doesn't need a response to their text message the second they send it. Trying to help my son understand that. And it's also a good reminder to myself that that text message can sit a little bit. It's fine. It's not critical to be able to be constantly on the devices. So I think that the same thing still applies. And probably when, many of us were growing up, relationships matter, and it starts with the relationship with your kid. I think that is first and foremost. I think the second thing is to be extremely curious about how your kids use technology, and be genuinely interested and play with them, or do those use the devices and the apps yourself, because it's really hard to know how to control Snapchat if you've never been on Snapchat, or, if you've never played Roblox. People forget that Roblox is a social media network, and it is a huge app that's out there. Same thing with a lot of game apps. Many of them you can connect with your friends and play games, which is a social network. They have chats built in. They have friend requests, following. All of these things, they probably have 10 times worse of a user terms and can collect more data than the bigger apps, because they're just little and they can kind of scoot around some of those, obvious spotlights of what they can and they can't track. So I would say that the first thing is, it starts with relationships. Get curious, know the apps themselves, and then start to limit the technology and the way that you can control them. Because many of them do have phones, Apple and Android both have screen time limits. They have, you can block certain apps, you can block different filters. But I am in this world. I know these platforms very well. My husband's in this world. He knows the platforms very well. And I will tell you, it is still confusing.
Yeah.
They do not make it easy. YouTube is a mess at trying to control videos. So the reality is that they're probably going to see something or hear something that's just not appropriate for them. So it's definitely probably better to start the conversation first, so that they know that they can come to you and ask you the right questions. If something weird does come across their screen.
Yeah, I love that. I really love what you said about just being with the child and engaging with them and using it with them, because I have a daughter and she's 4. And so she sees what I'm doing with tablets and phones and my screen time usage right now. She's not totally searching things on her own, but I do have older nieces and nephews, and they want to start creating YouTube videos, or they're on Roblox, or they're using all these, wanting to engage and use all of our different channels that we have accessible to us, and they want to make YouTube videos. And my brother has really kind of leaned on me to be the one, because I have YouTube videos from when I was in middle school out there somewhere, so that's embarrassing. But I am trying to help his kids understand this is how you use it in a fun way. I mean, we're cutting dough or cutting like kinetic sand. Right. Okay. And then they like me to do it because they say I have influencer nails because I get my nails done, So I'm showing them how to use it in a positive, fun, cute, healthy way where it's not, you have to wear this makeup or outfit or say these types of things or be so active where you have to look at your phone 24/7 or respond. So I really love just being in it and using it instead of making it this negative experience, because it doesn't have to be. I mean, it's going to be there and it's always going to be there. So how do you incorporate it in a fun, healthy way that your kids can see you, like you're the best example, the parent, the guardian, the role model, whoever, they're the best example of what to do versus just saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. So I really love that. We do with we are telecom, so we sell cell phones and we sell internet, and we know like what these things do. Technology is amazing. These things are great. But we also have app monitoring suites with our broadband that puts time limits. Like parents can navigate it, so you can restrict it all the way down to the age range. So for my 4-year-old, her tablet doesn't show anything over, I think, 5 or 6 years old. I mean, she tried to watch a Ninja Turtle movie and it blocked it. Like you can limit screen time, you can limit websites, you can even single out apps. Like I think I can stop Netflix, like in general, from playing. And it's really cool how, like as a telecom, we're able to provide these things for people, because I love the examples you also shared of things that if you don't have our internet services, what you can do with the products you have, because it can be hard for people to even know where to start on, like, hey, I want to monitor this, or I want to put these limits. Where do I even go? How do I use this? What's accessible to me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that what you were saying too, of like at that level of you're one step higher than the device, right? And I think people do not even realize that those options are out there, and that is so much easier to manage when you have like a product like yours than to manage it on the device level, because you're kind of just at the bottom level, kind of swatting at flies. Where when you have it at a higher level, it's a lot more consistent of an experience. Like you were saying, like you may not be able to get some movies through or whatever, but it's easier to do it that way than I swear, even all Apple devices feel like they do something a little bit different. Yeah. So it can get confusing.
Well, Beth, before we wrap up, I have one last question for you. Do you have any predictions for the future of what social media looks like?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I just knowing the cycles, and I think Threads is a perfect example of this. I think people are going to crave even more authenticity, be a little bit sillier on some of these platforms. And I do think these decentralized tools, whether or not people know they're even using them, will allow a better experience for both the user and their audience. And it will stop some of these Goliaths of these platforms from getting too big or too many people, and these wars that we feel like we're in the midst of with all the social platforms. So the decentralization and the return to a little bit more of this is who I really am authenticity is where I'd like to see them to go.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I love that.
That's my pipe dream.
Yeah, me too, man. I mean, seriously, I have YouTube videos of me singing, guys. Like, I want to be that person again. I don't want to make sure my pictures are cute. You know, I don't even want to have an aesthetic.
I know, it's like exhausting.
It's too much, yeah.
I don't even know how to use filters.
It's not
see,
worth
you're
it.
alreday ahead of the trend.
Yeah, there you are. Kelsey's ready.
I'm ready for the trend. I like it, Beth.
You're
I like
ready
it.
for it.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you taking the time out of your day today to speak to us. It was a great conversation, so thank you very much.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Beth.
thank
We
you
appreciate
for having
it.
me.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, until next time.
Stay authentic.